I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Thursday.
We got a politician in studio. You know where he is. He made a drive and stuff, too.
He did, all the way from the
cool.
West Slope. Well, you are listening to News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And a big good morning and welcome to our brand new listeners on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show. Alex Kelloff, candidate for Congressional District 3. He's taking on Jeff Hurd. And we're going to talk with him all the way from the West Slope, Best Slope, live in our studio. Let's go to the phone lines real quick. Jay in Thornton. Good morning, Jay. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Well, I've been thinking the last couple of days about all this stuff that's going on in our country where judges and governors and mayors or DAs are turning violent criminals back out onto the street. Those people need to be prosecuted as soon as they do that, in my opinion.
The crime? You're talking about the criminals?
Yeah. The ones that some murders, rapists, all this other stuff, and then what's wrong with people trying to inhibit them from being taken away by ICE? So then the other conversation this morning all had to do with the misnomer gun violence, and I was thinking about trees this morning, and don't they have this thing about chainsaw violence? You guys have a wonderful day. Nice to hear your show.
All right.
Jay,
Thanks, Jay.
No chainsaw violence against the trees. Yeah. All right, we're going to talk with Alex Kelloff, candidate for Congressional District 3. Now is time for the news.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It's Thursday, 28 and clear in Denver, 31 in the Springs, expecting highs in the low 60s today. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, the parents of the teen who shot 2 students and then himself at Evergreen High School in September will not face charges. Many are wondering if someone should still be held responsible, including Michael Breen, saying he has a friend who had kids in the school and they almost got shot.
If the parents knew and didn't do anything about it, they're wrong.
Investigators found no DNA link between the parents and the firearm, which was owned by the shooter's grandparent. Authorities said the gun was a family heirloom stored in a locked safe and not accessible to the teen. But some parents in the community believe criminal charges should be brought against the suspect's mom and dad. The case is closed unless new evidence emerges. The president is directing federal resources to southern Arizona, where the search for the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie is continuing. NBC's Liz Kreutz reports authorities believe 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie may have been forcibly taken from her home in Tucson.
Senior officials briefed on the investigation tell NBC News that investigators are looking into what appears to be blood found outside Nancy's home. They also say her pacemaker appears to have disconnected from its monitoring app in the early hours of Sunday morning.
Nancy Guthrie was last seen by family on Saturday night. In a social media post, 47 said he's directing federal law enforcement to help in the effort to find her. Buc-ee's has withdrawn its plans to build a large travel center in Palmer Lake after more than a year of public controversy. They pulled its annexation request, ending plans for a 74,000 square foot development near I-25 with the cleanest bathrooms on planet Earth. The proposal led to resignations of town officials and multiple legal challenges. Union workers at Colorado meat processing plant JBS in Greeley could soon stage a walkout. UFCW Local 7 says 99% of the union workers at the plant have voted in support of a strike. Union officials accuse the company of unfair labor practices and retaliation against union workers. JBS says it has made a fair offer for a new contract that includes wage increases and a pension plan. Borders are. Tom Homan says 700 ICE agents are leaving Minneapolis. He said the coordination with the local officials was helping to keep criminals off the street. 47 said ICE and their surge in Minnesota needed a softer touch. DJT is delivering remarks this morning at the National Prayer Breakfast. At last year's prayer breakfast, 47 announced his task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And 2 state lawmakers introducing a bill to criminalize abortion in South Dakota. It would apply existing homicide and wrongful death laws to unborn children. State Representative Tony Randolph and State Senator John Carley described the bill as an, quote, equal protection, end of quote, measure, since it would treat unborn children the same as those who are already born. Avalanche take a bite out of the Sharks 4-2 last night. On the ice, they are 37-9-9. The Knicks beat the Nuggets at the Garden in double OT 134-127 in the second of a back-to-back for the Nuggets. Super Bowl 60 preparation continues for the Patriots and the Seahawks. 31 in the Springs, 28 in Denver. More of the Jeff and Bill Show coming up on News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver and now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer in Colorado Springs, all along the Front Range. This is the Jeff and Bill Show. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Is it spring or February? Going to be hard to tell because through Monday, spring-like conditions will be found here along the Front Range as a massive high-pressure ridge will be over the Intermountain West through that period. This will lead to unseasonably warm, dry days and fair, cool nights with little or no significant threat of moisture whatsoever, likely through Monday. Temperatures in Denver and Colorado Springs will easily go through the upper 50s to as warm as the mid-60s, and nighttime temperatures that'll be mostly in the 30s. Changing weather, though, is on tap next week. The pattern is going to shift, finally. High pressure will dominate through Monday, while increasingly cloudy skies will start to develop in the region Tuesday, and by Wednesday through Friday of next week, temperatures statewide will trend colder. Mountain snow is going to be returning late Monday night, Tuesday into Wednesday, and maybe some Front Range snow chances around Wednesday of next week. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now, good morning to all our new friends at AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show. Well, they're going to be some of the hottest races this fall. the congressional races in Colorado popping up every 2 years. Jeff Hurd, the current congressman in Congressional District 3, which is the West Slope, is facing a challenge from Alex Kelloff. He's a Democrat, joins us now live in studio. Good morning, Alex. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning. Thanks, Jeff and Bill, for having me, and congratulations to entering Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
we're
expanded down
Been
there a little
rooting for
bit. Yeah, exactly. So we are Colorado's top talk radio show, right, left, center debate show. Love to dive in and have respectful dialogue and conversation. Glad to have you here. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
So first, introduce yourself, who you are and where you come from and why you want to be traveling from beautiful West Slope to Washington, D.C. on a regular basis.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for the question. And again, thanks for having me on. Well, I'm running, as you said, in the 3rd District of Colorado for the U.S. House of Representatives, Congress. My background in this district is my great-grandfather immigrated in 1893 to Trinidad, Colorado with his brothers. And like many back then, came to dig coal. So the family's roots go back deep, over 130 years. My grandfather was born in Aguilar, also dug coal before starting a chain of grocery stores throughout the San Luis Valley called Kelloff's Food Markets, after the family name. He went on to run that, and then my uncle took over for 70 years, and my dad grew up in La Jera. So deep roots in southern Colorado from the family background. My mom went to high school in Grand Junction. Central High School, that's a bit divisive. Many people went to Palisade or Grand Junction. She went to Central. And so the family's history goes back deep in the district. And I was concerned about, frankly, when this administration took over in 2024, I felt like I had to get involved. I've never run for public office. I've never been a politician. I've 30 plus years in business. And so I chose to get involved by running for office myself. So here we are.
And do you have a family?
I have a girlfriend, no kids.
Yeah. And what did you do for business?
I worked in the telecommunications industry primarily. So on the finance side, we funded small businesses, started a lot of businesses, building physical infrastructure. And I'm sure we'll talk more about this, about part of my platform and the vision I have for CD3, but building things, bringing the internet to rural communities, cell phone towers, and the like.
That's Alex Kelloff. He's challenging Jeff Hurd. Jeff Hurd defeated Adam Frisch, and we had Adam on last time, this is interesting to me that we're Denver's top talk radio show. I'm about as conservative as you get. I've had Adam Frisch and now Alex Kelloff on the show. Jeff Hurd has never joined us, even though we've asked him to.
He's refused so far.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. I did that.
We get into his leadership. Well, let's dive in.
Sure.
What do you think of Jeff Hurd? Why are you better than him to represent the people of Congressional District 3?
I think what I would say is, and I think you alluded to it at the outset, this is one of the largest congressional districts in the country. It's 53,000 square miles across 27 counties. So it's not for the faint of heart. And I think the biggest knock that I've heard against Jeff Hurd when I've been out on the campaign trail, and I should note, I set a goal for myself before the end of 2025 to visit every county, all 27 counties, and achieve that. So I've talked to a lot of the constituents across the district over the last few months, and the biggest knock against Jeff Hurd is he doesn't show up. No one's met him. He's done 2 virtual town halls where he's taken a total of 10 questions. So look, as I said, my background goes back generations in the district. I feel like I know the district well. I'm getting to know it better. And I feel like I'm better suited to represent the people because I'm out there talking to them, listening and learning, and Jeff's just not doing that.
So you grew up on the East Coast. Did you build your business? When did you move to the 3rd Congressional District?
About 6 years ago.
About 6 years ago. Okay. So, I mean, that's a sizable time to be able to understand and know the district better. You mentioned it was Donald Trump's election that got you involved. What about Donald Trump got you involved in politics?
So I've met Donald Trump in the past. I knew a lot of people that worked for him or worked with him. And this goes back, a dozen years at least. And I was concerned, not that he did everything wrong his first term, But I was concerned by him getting reelected in 2024 about the direction he would take the country. And I think as I sit here today and reflect on the last 12 months when he took office again, whether it's the chaos created by tariffs, whether it's us bailing out Argentina and buying Argentinian beef, whether it's passing the one big beautiful bill of which Jeff Hurd voted for, which guts Medicaid, which is critically important to this district that he serves. There's just a lot of things that the Trump administration has done that I think puts this country on a path to being worse off. In fact, I would just note today, there was a report out this morning that there were 118,000 plus job cuts in January. This is up almost 120% year over year from last January, and the worst start of the year since 2009. So if you're just looking at the job market, I think this administration has now been in office for a year, and we're headed in the wrong direction.
Let's talk about this with regards to jobs and tariffs. Republicans and under Donald Trump's leadership are looking at particularly the manufacturing industry and just going, we don't do it in America anymore. This globalist outsourcing has brought us a bunch of cheap Chinese crap that we can order on Amazon, but we can't build anything in this country anymore. And you and I were talking, I spoke in Durango 2 weeks ago, so drove all the way through the San Luis Valley. And I'm sitting there going, what do these people do to live, to have an economy? Because right now they just kind of seem to rely on tourism and people coming, but you don't drive past factories in America anymore. And there's definitely none in what it seems like in your district. So what do you do to address that and actually bring jobs and opportunity back to the 3rd Congressional District?
Sure, I appreciate the question. I think it's really important. The other thing I'd note is in the district there are not, and you sort of alluded to it, there's not a lot of large employers, particularly publicly listed public companies are not headquartered in this district. So where my family's background, as I said, my grandfather, uncle were in grocery stores. The family, the larger Kelloff family, had many, many different businesses. They had movie theaters, they had general stores. So they were small business that could earn a good living in the years past. And so we need to get back to that. When I talk to manufacturers in the district, all of whom are small businesses, they're struggling with high cost of living. So it's very hard for them to attract good employees that will come live in places like the Western Slope because it's actually very expensive to live there. They also deal with high utility costs. So it's hard to build a manufacturing base there without addressing those needs. And so some of what this administration does, I think, tries to address those needs, and I appreciate that. But let's take tariffs for a moment. I talked to a bike manufacturer as an example. And this is how chaotic the tariffs are to small business people or business in general. So for some reason, tariffs are not applied to bicycles that are manufactured overseas and brought in this country. There's no tariffs on them, or at least there haven't been historically. However, the bike parts that go into manufacturing a bike are tariffed. So you have bike manufacturers in this country, and in fact in this state, in my district, that want to create good manufacturing jobs, but can't do so because it's unprofitable. When they import the parts, they're tariffed. So you know what they do? They just have the bikes made, whole in another country and imported because they're not subject to tariffs. So the way these tariffs have been implemented have been very chaotic, and it's hard to create those jobs here. Is it the
tariff issue itself? Like, would you support tariffs? Like in that case with the bikes, we just need to apply them to things that are manufactured out there, or would you want to get rid of tariffs entirely?
I am much more for free market and guardrails around that free market. Yeah. Now, having said that, I think there probably are use cases for tariffs in very limited circumstances where it applies specifically to national security issues. Okay. Otherwise, I'd like to see the tariffs repealed.
So what would you do then if we need to bring manufacturing back? Like, let's use the bike example, for instance. In Vietnam, they can manufacture bikes much cheaper because they don't have all the labor requirements that we do in this country.
Right.
So what ended up happening is what I think we saw with that concern about NAFTA, that the giant sucking sound of jobs was leaving this country. So what do you do to try to bring manufacturing back if they're not competing at the same level? This is what I feel like Trump's trying to solve, which is they can essentially use slave labor in other countries to create something, and then it's shipped to this country, and it's not free in the sense of a free market competing at the same level. It's a market that is altered in other areas, and Americans can't compete, and so you don't have any manufacturing. What do you do if you don't use tariffs then?
Well, one, I'm very focused on small business formation and then creating good jobs from creating small businesses, whether that be in the services industry or the manufacturing hard goods industry. And I think what we need to do is we need to incentivize that small business creation. We need to remove barriers, regulatory barriers that make it hard for small businesses to compete. And we need to encourage that small business formation that will create good jobs. And I think create more local thriving economies where we can attract more workers to those places, where people can come raise their families there. We need to lower the cost of living. We were speaking earlier about a CEO of a fairly large, sizable business actually on the Western Slope that produces fishing rods, and they sell them globally. And I was speaking with him over a beer a few weeks ago, and he was telling me they're a growing business, but they're trying to attract labor, but the cost of living in the Western Slope has been driven up significantly, so it's hard for him to attract people to move here. And furthermore, utility costs have gone up. And in aluminum extrusion to make the fly rods and the fishing rods is very energy intensive. So utility costs are going up. These are things that we need to focus on to lower the cost of living, create good jobs, and create the environment that small businesses can be created and thrive.
Now, that's I'm going to jump Alex Kelloff, candidate for Congressional District 3, opponent for Jeff Hurd, that we're looking at. I want to talk to you a little bit about the job growth and also a balance with energy. Got a call that came in off air that wanted your opinion on a couple of levels, focusing on artificial intelligence.
Yep.
One, wanted your opinion on artificial intelligence hurting job growth when we're focusing on manufacturing. Recently, in the past couple of years, job losses, there are some concentrated in the manufacturing industry, but right now it's because AI coming in. That has very little to do with external pressures from other countries. Person wanted to know about your impression of AI taking jobs. Is it a plus or a minus? And the other thing I want to throw in there is the idea of energy cost and AI data centers. Is there a role in areas of southern Colorado where you have larger open spaces to building these AI data centers to bring in jobs, but knowing that also comes with the consequence of needing to provide that energy? Your opinion on both of those?
Thanks, Bill. So there was a lot in there. Let me start with the second question first, which is data centers, and specifically in Colorado. And I have been involved in the data center industry in the past. I mean, again, I said my 30-plus year career has been in telecommunications. Some of that has been in data centers. So I don't think there's a large place for data centers in Colorado, at least at the scale we hear Meta and Google and others building, partly because as we've seen in this winter season, our snowpack is down significantly. And as we all know, in Colorado, water is critically important to this state, and specifically the 3rd District. Our farmers, our ranchers, we're obviously, governors have been in Washington, D.C. trying to finalize the updated Colorado River Compact. Typically, data centers are large users of water, and so we don't have a lot to spare in this state. But the other thing is there are certain climates where you can cool those data centers and the computers in the data centers without water. You can use ambient air to do that. So I think there are other states and other geographies that are much better suited than Colorado to support data center infrastructure like that. The other thing is it does create good trade jobs and construction jobs that are finite, because that you come in, you build that infrastructure over 12, 18, 24 months, and then there's not a lot of ongoing employment in those actual physical warehouses that hold the computers. So I'm not a proponent of Colorado as a destination for these large data centers. Having said that, I think AI is critically important as a national security issue to this country and as an economic issue to this country. And so we do need to reasonably build out data center infrastructure where it makes sense. With respect to AI, I think it's too early to know what the impacts are in AI replacing jobs. Having said that, I think we need Congress, the administration, et cetera, to be smart about thinking through the potential implications of AI taking jobs. So I'd like to see more done on that front by Congress and by the administration, working collaboratively, because that is a potential existential question to the labor market. I just don't know if we know what's going to happen quite yet.
What does that look like, to have government step in and prevent jobs from being lost?
Well, a lot of people have talked about is there a universal basic income, such that if AI really does replace massive amounts of jobs, is there some base level income? I'm not necessarily, it's way too early for me to support something like that. But also when you look throughout history, economic development and innovation, it's actually usually led to more job creation.
Right, exactly.
Not less.
That's why I'm like, I don't want the government going, hold on, printing press. We got to make sure your job's maintained when, the internet showed up. So.
Yeah, or railroads or what we've seen in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Alex Kelloff. Alex is running for Congress in Congressional District 3. His website, by the way, if you want to learn more about him, is Alex Kelloff, KELLOFF.com. AlexKelloff.com. Learn more about him. All right, let's dive into being a congressman. Lots of hot topics right now. My thesis out there is that the minute Democrats get control of the House, it's just going to be nonstop impeachment proceedings over and over and over again. Has President Trump done anything, in your mind, that is worthy of being impeached?
There are areas that I think probably need to be looked into, and Congress has oversight responsibility for the executive branch as well as the other branches, the judicial branch as well. But I think it's too early for me to comment on, I'm not in Congress. I'm not a sitting congressperson. I am concerned about some of the agreements that his family has cut with foreign governments or foreign individuals that might rise to the level of some sort of corruption, but I really don't know.
How about the defunding of ICE? Do you support that?
What I do believe is that, one, I do not believe in abolishing ICE. What I do believe, and I recently wrote an op-ed about this, is that a common sense solution for ICE is actually, look, I believe in safe communities just like everyone else. I believe in strong borders. I believe that the best people to carry out detaining, violent criminals, whether that be U.S. citizens or undocumented people, is local law enforcement. So I would like to see the budgets that ICE has been granted by this Congress, supported by this administration, pushed by this administration, that a lot of that funding go to fund local law enforcement who's been trained, who follows the Constitution. If you arrest someone, you read them their Miranda rights. So I'd like to see that funding be reallocated to people that know the communities, know how to make the communities safer, and do that.
So would that be, you would oppose the sanctuary city policies that have created this division between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement?
I'm less familiar with sanctuary cities living on the Western Slope and CD3. I mean, I don't believe we have any sanctuary towns or cities there. I know there's certainly local communities that support our immigrants more than others do, but I believe that ICE should work with local law enforcement. We don't need ICE and CBP troops in the streets going around detaining American citizens unlawfully, unfortunately leading to some tragic deaths, as we've seen in Minnesota. I'd like to see ICE work with local law enforcement to go after the violent criminals, and if detain them where obviously it's lawful.
Yeah, that's where there's a division, because in Colorado right now, you may not see it in Grand Junction. Denver's definitely a sanctuary city, but Colorado has passed laws that specifically prohibits local law enforcement from coordinating with federal law enforcement operations, immigration operations, to the point where you had a Mesa County sheriff's deputy that just was texting saying, hey, I ran into somebody, I think they're illegal. And Phil Weiser, chases him down, does all this investigation in his own personal capacity. So the state of Colorado has created this division where there's not cooperation taking place. There's going to be a ballot initiative that is going to be on everyone's ballot this November that is going to say, in terms of violent crime, the state should be coordinating with federal law enforcement. It sounds like you would support that.
Well, I think to the example that you gave with the sheriff's deputy, I am familiar with that. I don't know all the details. What I'm more in favor for is coordination when you're targeting specific individuals who that have a criminal record. So you're specifically targeting those individuals to go detain them, just like local law enforcement would do with the U.S. citizens who's broken the law and they have a warrant out for their arrest. Yeah. I don't know about, was someone racially profiled and pulled over and then the deputy texts ICE to say, I think I've got one. So I think there's a fine line there, but I think there's probably a policy that both sides can agree on that's common sense policy where we're making our community safer, but not at the expense of having ICE patrolling the streets, kind of recklessly.
That's Alex Kelloff. Alex is running for Congress in Congressional District 3. He's challenging Jeff Hurd. We're going to continue this conversation. Feel free to jump in anytime. 303-696-1971 is the phone line. The text message is super hot on this. You can text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. When we come back, I'm going to ask him directly, is Alex Kelloff a socialist? It seems like they're rising up in the Democrat Party. Is he willing to embrace the moniker? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is News Talk 710 KNUS, and now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. All along the Front Range, this is The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
You are listening to the Jeff and Bill Show all along the Front Range. We got a candidate live in studio. He's taking all the tough questions today, which we appreciate. Alex Kelloff, he's a candidate for Congressional District 3, thinks that it can be better managed in Congress, represented by a Democrat, than what Jeff Hurd is doing. Jeff, the studio is always open to you if you want to come be a part of it. By the way, I'm afraid to say this because I'm going to spoil something here, but Colorado's best kept secret is Cortez, Colorado. I don't want to say, but you get down there, that is
pretty
a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is gorgeous.
And you got to drive long ways to get there. Where do you live in CD3?
The Roaring Fork Valley.
Roaring Fork Valley. And what do you like to do? I mean, it's such an outdoorsy adventure. If I lived out, and I did close to it, I lived in Buena Vista for 5 years, but I mean, what do you do for fun?
I mean, anything outside. That's why I live where I live. That's why most of us live where we live on the western slope in southern Colorado, because as you said, it's a beautiful area. But I'm a big skier. I probably surprise some Democrats or progressives to know I'm a big snowmobiler and hunter, and I like to fish as well. But
what do you hunt?
Actually, mostly growing up on the East Coast, would hunt black bear and then deer.
Wow.
And getting more into it now.
Do you have a bear rug in your house?
I don't.
That would be so
maybe
cool.
Someday.
Yeah.
Maybe someday. Yeah.
Did you ever get a black bear?
I haven't actually. Those suckers run fast when they see you or smell you or hear you. So I haven't.
Wow. And so do you do elk hunting now up there? And all
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Starting to.
That's Alex Kelloff. He's running for Congress Congressional District 3. All right, Democrat Party having a big conversation right now. You have Mamdani that was elected in New York City. You've got AOC. Bernie Sanders came to Denver, 30,000, embracing the socialist moniker. I'll ask you directly, Alex Kelloff, are you a socialist?
I'm not a socialist, no.
Why not? The government's going to solve all of our problems. Just fully embrace it at this point.
Fair enough. Look, I mean, I think I'm running in CD3, as we've talked about. It's a huge district. It's very diverse. You know, Grand Junction is different from Pueblo, is different from Cortez or Durango or San Luis Valley, where my dad grew up. And it's interesting when you look at the voter breakdown, 50% are unaffiliated, right? Like Bill over here, I guess. Yeah. But so, you know, if you're going to represent the district, you have to represent everyone. Every congressperson should represent all of their constituents. So I don't like labels. What I tell people is I'll tell you what I stand for and what I believe. If you want to label me, you can label me any way you want. So that's where I stand.
But I've noticed this moment in American history where we seem to really believe that the government can solve our problems. When I go down, I probably talk to more Democrats than any other Republican in Colorado. I go to the rallies. They call into my show, tell me I'm an idiot. So I get to talk with them. And I don't at all believe that Democrats are evil people, but I've noticed that they have this undying belief that if we just create another government program, things will work out. If we just had a little bit more of your tax dollars, if we could, then healthcare will get more affordable and it'll be good. You're running in a unique district, as you mentioned. So help me understand where you fall on all this with regards to the power of the free market, of small business owners to be able to build something, to not have to deal with all the regulations that are out there that I think are killing industries. But then this passionate belief that happens in the Democrat Party that if we just had one more government program, then everything will work out. Where do you fall along those lines?
It's a great question. Look, I think that the government provides critical roles for certain industries, certain services that it provides. We couldn't have a national military without the government, and we have the most powerful military in the world, and God bless the men and women who serve in our military. We couldn't have a strong healthcare system, particularly in the rural areas of which my district has many rural hospitals, whether it's Veterans Affairs hospitals, whether it's critical care. Those hospitals, because of their rural nature, needs government to play a role. You can't privatize those altogether. We have a social safety net in this country with Social Security. That is a government program. So I don't believe government should try and solve every problem and that there should be a new program for solutions in something that government has no business getting into. What we need to do, though, is we need to invest in those programs and those systems that are critical that only the federal government or the local governments can support.
That's Alex Kelloff running for Congress, Congressional District 3. He's looking to replace Jeff Hurd. One of the great questions that came in said, if you had the ability to come up with an immigration plan, no one could stop you, what would that look like for America?
Strong borders, seal the borders, pathway to citizenship for those undocumented immigrants that are here. We're a country that was built on immigrants, of which both sides of my family, like all of us, came from immigrants who immigrated to this country at some point. So I think we need to make the investments in these systems. So say the immigration system. These are investments that we've made, that our ancestors and our forebears have made, that have created the United States of which we know today. We need to reinvest in those systems. We need to create a pathway of citizenship for those that are here. Perhaps they're undocumented, but they're lawful. They're living. They're not breaking laws. They're going to work, and frankly, they're often good. I hesitate to use the word citizens because that wouldn't be accurate, but they're members of the community that are good, upstanding members of the community, and we need to provide pathways to citizenship for them. So that's what it would look like if I were to recreate the system.
Alex Kelloff, candidate for Congressional District 3. Let's dive into the SAVE Act. That's before Congress right now. Hot topic, nationalize elections, keep it local, voter ID. I think there's some nuance, and we're going to get into that in the next hour. But would you support mandatory photo ID requirements to vote?
I have no problem with that, but isn't that required today? I seem to recall that every time I've ever gone to vote, I had to show an ID. So I'm not sure how that's much different than what we have today.
So there's two distinctions here, because part of the debate is happening between national elections and local elections, right? And so the federal government can have requirements with regards to how national elections are implemented. What day, for instance? You have to be over the age of 18.
Sure.
You could be both men and women. You can't have any racial discrimination with regards to elections. But then they're administered locally. And to register to vote, the only requirement the first time nationally is that you affirm or attest that you are an American citizen. And then in Colorado, all you need is a utility bill, for instance. You don't have to have photo ID to be able to do that. That's where there's concern, is that in Colorado, with illegal immigrants having driver's licenses and other things, even though they're not technically allowed to vote, all you have to have is a utility bill, for instance, to show up to be able to vote. So Republicans saying that, a photo ID nationally mandatory is no different than, some of the other requirements we've put in. Like, for instance, you can't racially discriminate in voting. The federal government can set these clear boundaries. Democrats saying we're back to Jim Crow if you require ID to vote. Where do you fall on those lines?
Look, I think that Republicans are always standing for less government. This seems like a new policy they're trying to create more bureaucracy. I have never seen significant voter fraud or evidence of significant voter fraud, and not even significant, just voter fraud in general, as a result of people not showing a federal ID or a state ID. The only election interference I've seen was Tina Peters in Mesa County that went to jail, who was a Republican clerk who tried to interfere in the 2024 elections illegally, was sentenced by a jury of her peers by a Republican district attorney there who was convicted on 7 counts, and now the president's trying to get her released. So I think there are other issues that are more important than these voter ID laws that are trying to be passed.
Do you think the 9 years was adequate in the sense the length of the sentence that Tina Peters was imprisoned?
I'm not sure that's for me to judge. I mean, the judge was the one who sentenced her, so.
Yeah, and he is facing right now questions with regards to free speech violations. It's all before the appeals court. But joining us now, Alex Kelloff, candidate for Congressional District 3. You can learn more about Alex by going to alexkelloff.com, alexkelloff.com. We will wrap with him. You are listening to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Alex Kelloff is live in studio, and the text messages on both sides of this. Alex, people calling you reasonable, measured, and intelligent. Others calling you a classic liberal Democrat. So you're getting both sides, which is good. Good sign on the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, you got a few questions for Alex?
Yeah, I want to give voice to one of the texters. This is shout out Gino the cop. Appreciate the question, man. He wants to ask you, given, and I'm going to add a little bit into this, Gino, given your family's history with small business, he wants your reaction of regulation and taxing of small businesses. Is that conducive to growth? I'm going to add in the idea of where is that tipping point? Where have you and your family seen where it could possibly be a positive and then becomes a negative? Or is it always a positive or always a negative? Your opinion?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. I think my view is that it's less about do we need, necessarily fewer regulations, which the answer is probably yes, on all business, and lower taxes. It's more a matter of, in my mind, how large businesses are treated relative to small businesses. And small businesses just don't have the resources to take advantage of, say, the tax loopholes in the tax code that large businesses can benefit from. So it's kind of an uneven playing field, if you will. The tax rate for businesses is the same if you're a large business or small business. So I'm more focused on, creating a tax code that closes loopholes so that large businesses don't have all those advantages of competing against small businesses, putting them out of business.
I'd throw healthcare in there as well, because the large business has the ability, based on number of people they bring into the system, to lower the overall healthcare cost. So the company that is larger, the one that has more resources and has the ability to afford larger healthcare prices, gets a cut, while the smaller business that is running on less of a profit margin is squeezed by having higher healthcare costs. So we disadvantage the smaller business that way.
100% agree with you, and I'd also add in access to the banking system.
Yes.
Big companies can get loans from banks, much harder for smaller businesses as the local banks have closed shop, gone out of business, consolidated, and that sort of thing.
All right. That's Alex Kelloff. He's running for Congress, Congressional District 3. We've only got a few minutes left. You've been very generous with your time visiting us from the Western Slope. Text message, are you more of a John Fetterman Democrat or an Eric Swalwell Democrat? Are you ready to get in there and mix it up and fight in those congressional hearings, or do you want to work with Republicans?
Look, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think you got to stand up for what you believe in and fight for what you believe in, and that's what I'm prepared to do. Having said that, I think to move this country forward, we truly do need to work together. And what I'd love to see is coming together to tackle some of the big problems. Healthcare being, front of mind as an example. Immigration being another one. We're not going to agree on everything, but to move this country forward, we have to work together. But that doesn't mean that you don't fight for what you believe in or compromise your principles.
Alex Kelloff running for Congress, Congressional District 3, ALXKELLOFF, AlexKelloff.com. If you want to learn more. Alex, thank you so much for swinging by and being
Thanks
part
a
of
lot.
the Jeff and Bill
Thanks,
show.
Jeff and Bill. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We'll continue the conversation, particularly around the SAVE Act. I want to get your response on this. Is this an effort to nationalize our elections coming up with Donald Trump and the Republicans in the House and the Senate? Should it be voted upon in the Senate? It hasn't been. Chuck Schumer saying absolutely won't pass. Or is this just common sense? Look, we allow the federal government to set standards. One of them needs to be you have a photo ID. You can't buy beer without a photo ID. You can't get on an airplane without a photo ID. Why not require that in elections? It seems common sense to me. Why are Democrats opposing that? We'll get into all of that and more. We want you to be a part of the conversation. Call us at 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show News Talk, 710 KNUS in Denver.
And now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. All on the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show. We'll be right back.